Train your mouth to talk, because your life is listening every second and obeying every command you give it, whether you realize it or not. Most people sabotage themselves, not with lack of talent, but with careless words. They speak doubt before effort, fear before action, and excuses before results. The moment you open your mouth without control, you reveal the level of your discipline, because words are not harmless. They are instructions spoken to the subconscious mind, and repeated instructions become habits. Habits form character, and character decides destiny. A person who constantly speaks about problems trains the mind to search for problems, while a person who speaks in terms of solutions conditions the mind to act with authority. Every complaint is a confession of weakness. Every excuse is a resignation letter from your own potential. Strong people do not waste words. They issue commands to their mind. They speak clarity, purpose, and certainty, because focused speech creates focused thought, and focused thought creates unstoppable momentum. If you cannot control your tongue, you will never control your future, because success does not respond to wishful talk. It responds to deliberate language spoken with belief, emotion, and direction. Decide today that every word leaving your mouth will serve your definite aim, because the world does not reward intention. It rewards the individual who has trained their mouth to talk like a leader even before the results arrive. Your mouth is either your greatest weapon or your biggest liability, and there is no neutral ground, because every word you speak is either building your future or quietly destroying it. Most people lose long before they fail in action, because they fail first in language, training their minds to expect defeat by casually speaking doubt, fear, and limitation as if words have no consequences. The mouth is not just a tool for communication, it is a command center, issuing daily instructions to the subconscious mind, and the subconscious does not argue, it obeys. Whatever you repeatedly say about yourself, your situation, your chances, and your limits becomes a belief, and beliefs are not opinions. They are operating systems that run your life in the background. Untrained mouths leak weakness. They complain when pressure arrives, explain why things are hard instead of why they must be done, and speak emotionally instead of intentionally. This kind of talk feels harmless, even honest, but it is lethal to progress, because every complaint reinforces the idea that you are a victim of circumstances instead of the controller of outcomes. The moment you say, "I can't," your mind stops searching for solutions. The moment you say it's too late, your brain shuts the door on effort. People don't realize they are talking themselves out of discipline, courage, and persistence, sentence by sentence, day after day. Strong individuals train their mouths the way warriors train their weapons. They do not allow random words to escape. They speak with direction because they think with direction. They understand that language shapes focus, and focus shapes behavior. When a disciplined person speaks, their words are aligned with a definite aim. They don't announce confusion, they declare intent. They don't narrate fear, they describe action. This is not fake positivity or empty hype. It is mental discipline. They refuse to give verbal power to doubt, because they know doubt grows when fed attention. Your mouth introduces ideas to your mind before the world ever sees them, long before success shows up in reality. It must first exist in language. You talk yourself into effort before effort becomes habit. You talk yourself into persistence before persistence produces results. This is why careless speech is so dangerous. It poisons the soil before the seed ever has a chance to grow. If you constantly talk about how tired you are, your body listens. If you constantly talk about how unlucky you are, your mind searches for proof. Words create patterns, and patterns create outcomes. Most people wait for confidence to speak boldly, but confident people speak boldly first and let confidence catch up. They understand that certainty is trained, not discovered. The tongue is the steering wheel of the mind, and wherever you turn it consistently, your life will follow. When pressure hits, an untrained mouth exposes panic, but a trained mouth issues commands like stay calm, focus, and move forward. These words don't change reality instantly, but they change response, and response is what separates winners from everyone else. If you want power, start with silence and precision. Stop narrating your problems to anyone who will listen. Stop explaining why your situation is different. Stop joking about your lack of discipline as if weakness becomes acceptable when it's funny. Every unnecessary word drains energy. Powerful people are economical with language because they understand that energy wasted in talk is energy stolen from execution. When they speak, it is to reinforce belief, clarify direction, or initiate action. Your environment is always listening, but more importantly, your mind is always listening. It records tone, repetition, and emotion. Speak with authority even when results are not visible yet. Speak with commitment even when motivation is low. Speak in alignment with where you are going, not where you are stuck. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about refusing to sabotage yourself. You don't need louder words, you need disciplined words. Train your mouth daily. Catch weak phrases and eliminate them. Replace explanations with decisions. Replace complaints with commands. Replace emotional reactions with deliberate statements. Over time, your language will sharpen your thinking will sharpen your actions, and your actions will compound into results. Master your mouth, and you master the first gate of self-control. Fail to do so, and no amount of tail. Intelligence, or opportunity will save you, because the enemy will not be outside you, it will be speaking from within. Words shape self-image before they shape results, and anyone who ignores this is fighting life with the wrong weapon, because results are nothing more than the visible shadow of an invisible identity. Long before success or failure shows up in action, it first settles quietly into how you describe yourself, your abilities, your limits, and your future. The mind does not rise to what you want, it sinks to what you repeatedly say you are. Every time you speak, you are reinforcing a picture of yourself, and that picture dictates what you attempt, what you avoid, and what you tolerate. Most people think self-image is formed by achievements, but that is backwards. Self-image is formed by internal dialogue expressed outwardly, and achievements simply follow its instructions. When you constantly describe yourself as unlucky, average, confused, or behind, you program the mind to behave in ways that confirm those labels. The brain seeks consistency, not success, so it will subconsciously sabotage effort just to stay aligned with the identity you've spoken into existence. This is why people with potential stay stuck. Their language keeps dragging them back to an old version of themselves. They refuse to let die. Words spoken repeatedly become beliefs, and beliefs quietly set boundaries on behavior. You don't hesitate because you lack ability. You hesitate because your self-talk has trained you to expect failure or embarrassment. You don't quit because the goal is impossible. You quit because your internal language has already decided the outcome. Every "I'm not that kind of person" sentence is a cage you build for yourself, and then you wonder why your life feels small. The mouth becomes the architect of limitation before the world ever has a chance to test you. Strong individuals are obsessive about language because they understand identity is fragile and constantly under construction. They do not allow careless words to define them. They choose language that reflects direction, not mood. They speak about themselves in terms of commitment, growth, and responsibility, even when evidence is thin. This is not arrogance, it is strategy. They know the mind must first accept a new self-image before it will permit new behavior. You cannot consistently act like a leader if you speak like a victim. You cannot build discipline while constantly telling yourself you are lazy. The words don't just describe reality, they train the mind to recreate it. Your self-image determines what feels normal to you. If struggle feels normal, you will unconsciously recreate struggle. If inconsistency feels normal, you will resist structure even when it benefits you. Language is the tool that normalizes either strength or weakness. When you speak decisively, you normalize decisiveness. When you speak confidently, you normalize confidence. Over time, the mind stops arguing and starts obeying. What once felt forced becomes natural, and what becomes natural becomes permanent. Most people try to change their results without changing their language, and that effort always collapses under pressure. The moment stress arrives, the old words return, and with them the old identity. This is why transformation requires ruthless awareness of speech. You must catch the phrases that keep you small, not occasionally, but constantly. You must remove sentences that excuse mediocrity and replace them with statements that demand growth. The mouth is the gateway to the subconscious, and whatever passes through it repeatedly becomes law. This process is uncomfortable because it exposes how much damage you've done to yourself with your own words. But discomfort is the price of rewriting identity. You cannot evolve while protecting old language. The moment you change how you speak about yourself, resistance will appear because the mind hates identity change. Push through it anyway. Speak in alignment with the person you are becoming, not the person you've been rehearsing for years. Results eventually follow because behavior has no choice but to align with identity. When you see yourself as disciplined, you act disciplined. When you see yourself as capable, you attempt harder things. When you see yourself as responsible for outcomes, excuses lose their power. This is not motivation, it is conditioning. The strongest self-image is built deliberately, word by word, day by day. If you want different results, stop chasing outcomes and start commanding identity through language. Guard your words like your future depends on them, because it does. The world responds to who you believe you are, and belief is trained through repetition. Speak carelessly, and you will live carelessly. Speak with intention, and your life will slowly but inevitably rise to match the image you have constructed with, your own voice. Uncontrolled speech equals uncontrolled destiny because words are not empty sounds. They are commands sent to the deepest part of your mind, shaping your beliefs, actions, and ultimately the life you live. Most people underestimate the power of language, thinking that what they say doesn't matter as long as they try or intend to do better. That is naive. Every careless word you release into the world is an instruction, and the subconscious mind does not negotiate, it obeys. When you speak without control, you surrender your destiny to chance, letting every fleeting emotion, fear, and frustration dictate the path of your life. Consider how easily people complain, excuse, or gossip. I can't do it. It's not my fault. Life is unfair. These statements feel like harmless venting, but they are seeds of failure planted in the fertile ground of the mind. Each word reinforces limitation, builds doubt, and programs inertia. The more uncontrolled your speech, the more your mind defaults to weakness. You cannot expect greatness, while your tongue freely narrates helplessness. Destiny is not shaped by circumstance, it is shaped by the commands you give yourself. When speech is uncontrolled, the commands are chaotic, and chaos always produces mediocre results, missed opportunities, and frustration. The disciplined individual understands that speech is the first battlefield in the war for control over life. They monitor every sentence spoken, every phrase muttered, and every word repeated internally. They do not allow anger, laziness, or fear to spill from the mouth unchecked. They know that uncontrolled speech reinforces old patterns, while disciplined speech rewires the mind for success. The difference between people who achieve and those who do not is not luck. It is the mastery of the words they allow themselves to speak. Controlled speech equals controlled thought, and controlled thought equals deliberate action. Think about it. What you say most often becomes your reality. If you constantly narrate weakness, delay, and limitation, your subconscious mind will create a world that matches those words. If you speak carelessly about others, about opportunities, or about your own abilities, you invite chaos into your life. Words are not just reflections of thought, they are the blueprint your life follows. To ignore them is to relinquish your future. People who reach extraordinary levels of success do not leave their language to chance. They speak with purpose, they speak with authority, they speak as though the results they desire are already inevitable, because repetition convinces the mind that there is no alternative. Controlled speech transforms self-perception, sharpens focus, and primes action before circumstances even align. Every carefully chosen word is a brick in the foundation of destiny, while uncontrolled chatter is a wrecking ball tearing it down. Most people fail to realize that uncontrolled speech not only sabotages personal progress, but also impacts relationships, reputation, and influence. Words carry energy. When unregulated, they spread uncertainty, distrust, and negativity. If you constantly speak without control, you do not just train yourself, you train everyone around you to expect inconsistency. Your environment becomes unpredictable, your opportunities shrink, and your network avoids aligning with someone who cannot control their own voice. Your destiny is never an individual battle. It is influenced by the ripple effects of every uncontrolled phrase. Discipline of speech is therefore a discipline of destiny. It requires vigilance, self-awareness, and relentless practice. It is about catching phrases that weaken, correcting thoughts that limit, and issuing commands that empower. It is about speaking with precision, not emotion. Speaking with intention, not reaction. Speaking in a way that creates momentum instead of friction. The person who masters their speech has already taken command of the forces that govern success, while the person who allows words to run wild is at the mercy of the very chaos they create. Imagine every word as a vote for the life you will live. When speech is uncontrolled, votes are cast randomly in favor of failure, distraction, and indecision. When speech is disciplined, votes are cast deliberately in favor of growth, mastery, and achievement. You can see the difference clearly in people who fail versus people who succeed. Success does not arrive for the uncontrolled. It arrives for the deliberate. Destiny does not reward wishful thinking. It responds to the signals your words broadcast to your mind and to the world. If you want control over your destiny, start with control over your speech. Refuse to speak out of fear. Refuse to complain without solution. Refuse to explain away weakness. Instead, speak with certainty, speak with direction, and speak as though every word is a command that shapes reality. Over time, your subconscious mind aligns with the language you consistently use, and action becomes automatic, focus becomes unwavering, and results become inevitable. Uncontrolled speech is the silent killer of ambition. It erodes confidence, corrodes relationships, and undermines every goal before effort even begins. But controlled speech is the secret weapon of the relentless, the disciplined, and the extraordinary. It transforms thought into action, belief into habit, and intention into achievement. To master your destiny, master your words. Let your speech be deliberate, sharp, and purposeful, because your future is listening and it will obey. Complaints train failure, commands train power, and there is no middle ground, because every time you utter a complaint, you are giving your mind a blueprint for weakness, while every deliberate command you speak is a blueprint for strength. Most people underestimate the sheer destructive force of complaints because they think of them as harmless venting, casual observations, or even truthful statements about life's difficulty, but they are not harmless. Complaints condition your subconscious to see obstacles as permanent, limitations as unchangeable, and your own effort as insufficient. Every complaint is a tiny act of surrender, teaching your mind that struggle is insurmountable, that effort is optional, and that failure is inevitable. The more you complain, the more your world aligns with that surrender, and soon your life reflects the consistent output of your own verbalized weakness. Powerful people understand that speech is not just communication, it is action. Irate with authority to act decisively and to seek progress relentlessly. Complaints, in contrast, train inaction, indecision, and resignation. If you want results, you cannot allow your speech to drift toward whining, arguing, or blaming, because every uttered complaint subtly erodes power, morale, and momentum. Notice how people who complain constantly never achieve momentum. They may be busy, but their busyness is directionless, their effort scattered, and their results inconsistent. Complaints train the mind to scan for problems instead of solutions, to magnify barriers instead of opportunities, and to expect failure instead of commanding success. Every complaint is a repetition of doubt, a rehearsal for defeat, and a permission slip for mediocrity. In contrast, those who speak in commands cultivate clarity, authority, and unstoppable focus. Their language is declarative, not questioning. It sets the terms for action, not negotiation. Commands are not empty affirmations, they are deliberate triggers that organize thought and action. When you tell yourself, "I will do this by noon," you engage your mind in planning, prioritizing, and executing. When you say, "I refuse to quit," you reinforce persistence, resilience, and endurance. Every command becomes a signal to the subconscious to marshal resources, focus attention, and eliminate distractions. The brain responds to certainty, not hope, and commands provide certainty in a way complaints never can. Complaints are emotional noise. Commands are strategic instructions. One trains failure, the other trains dominance. Most people are blind to this because they mistake talk for thought. They assume thinking is private and that speech is merely a reflection, but that is false. Words are internalized by the mind, repeated as belief, and then expressed through action. Complaints become invisible chains, restricting behavior before the first step is even taken. Commands, on the other hand, are the scaffolding of freedom and achievement. They focus energy, sharpen vision, and mobilize action toward measurable objectives. If you want to build power, you cannot allow complaints to roam unchecked. They are the mental equivalent of leaving your doors open to chaos while expecting security. Consider the difference in energy. Complaints drain because they train your mind to linger on problems, magnify obstacles, and fixate on limitations. Commands energize because they direct attention to solutions, possibilities, and action. Complaints are reactive, passive, and emotionally charged, while commands are proactive, intentional, and strategically precise. Complaints produce fear and hesitation. Commands produce courage and decisiveness. The quality of your speech determines the quality of your life because speech is the bridge between thought and action. You cannot build power from complaints any more than you can build a house on sand. This is why mastery of speech is mastery of life, to transform outcomes. You must catch every complaint before it leaves your mouth. Notice the words that undermine you. Phrases like, "I can't," "this is impossible," "why me," or "I don't know how." Replace them immediately with commands that reinforce authority, capability, and responsibility. Speak as though your words are orders, not suggestions. Speak as though your mind, body, and circumstances will obey, because in reality they do. Repetition of commands rewires your mind to act decisively, to seek solutions relentlessly, and to navigate obstacles with unshakable focus. Complaints, repeated over time, guarantee drift, defeat, and wasted potential. Powerful individuals do not wait for motivation, clarity, or confidence to speak in commands. They speak first, and their confidence and results catch up. They understand that language is the forge of the self. The more precise, decisive, and forward-directed your speech, the stronger your mind, habits, and actions become. Commands are not optional. They are mandatory for anyone who refuses to live passively, anyone who refuses to surrender to circumstance, anyone who is serious about shaping life instead of being shaped by it. Train your mouth to speak in commands, not complaints. Every day, monitor what you say and eliminate language that reinforces limitation, doubt, or inertia. Replace it with language that commands action, focus, and victory. Complaints will always try to creep in because weakness is comfortable, but mastery is uncomfortable, and mastery begins with words. When you speak in commands consistently, you train your mind to produce power, resilience, and unstoppable momentum. When you speak in complaints consistently, you train your mind to accept failure. The choice is yours. Every word is a vote. Speak carefully, speak deliberately, speak with power, because your destiny is listening and it will obey exactly what you command. You speak your reality into existence daily, whether you realize it or not, and most people do it unconsciously, handing the blueprint of their lives to doubt, fear, and habit without ever thinking twice. Every word you release into the world, every phrase you mutter under your breath, every sentence you repeat to yourself is a command, an instruction that your subconscious mind obeys without question. Your reality is not a random collection of events, luck, or circumstance. It is the cumulative result of the language you use to describe yourself, your potential, and your environment. Every time you say, "I can't," "I'm not ready," or "this is too hard," you are speaking a version of reality into existence where failure, limitation, and struggle dominate. Your subconscious hears it, organizes your actions to match it, and your outer life conforms to the narrative you create. Most people underestimate this power because they think words are temporary and insignificant, but they are not. Words are not merely sound, they are tools of creation, and like any tool, they must be did with precision. You speak your reality into existence, not only when addressing others, but in the private, unmonitored dialogue of your mind. Every thought expressed verbally becomes a pattern. Every pattern becomes a belief, and every belief becomes a law governing your behavior. When you repeatedly describe your challenges as insurmountable, your mind begins to accept that as truth, and then it organizes your attention, effort, and focus in ways that guarantee the outcome you unconsciously demanded. This is why people who complain constantly, excuse endlessly, or speak doubt habitually never achieve their potential. They are architecting a world that matches the language they use. The disciplined individual understands that speech is not passive, it is action. To speak carelessly is to act carelessly, to think carelessly and to live carelessly. Every declarative statement about yourself, your abilities, and your goals is a signal that programs behavior. When you speak with clarity and intention, the mind receives direction. When you speak with certainty, it builds confidence. When you speak with decisiveness, it strengthens focus. Reality begins to bend toward the structure, energy, and momentum you generate through language. Words are not idle, they are active agents in the creation of your life. Most people wait for circumstances, motivation, or validation before they alter their language, but the truth is that your words are the lever that shifts reality itself. Speak as though success is inevitable, and your mind will start operating on a level that produces it. Speak as though mastery is your birthright, and your behaviors, habits, and decisions will align with that identity. Speak in terms of commands and outcomes, not excuses and limitations, because your subconscious does not interpret nuance. It obeys the literal instructions of your speech. Over time, your language constructs a framework of reality where obstacles are conquered, opportunities are seized, and results become predictable rather than random. Think about the average person who constantly laments circumstance. I don't have enough time, I'm too tired, this will never work. Each phrase is a brick in the architecture of limitation. Their reality day after day becomes a reflection of these statements. Their work, relationships, and opportunities conform to the structure of self-doubt they have built with language. In contrast, the individual who speaks with intention begins every day issuing words that define ambition, action, and belief. I will accomplish this. I have the skill to overcome this challenge. I refuse to accept anything less than excellence. These words are not empty. They are signals that train focus, shape perception, and direct energy toward achievement. Speaking reality into existence daily also means recognizing the immense responsibility of your speech. Every statement about others, about circumstance, and about your environment influence perception, reaction, and opportunity. Words spoken in anger, frustration, or jealousy are no less powerful. They shape the energy around you, alter relationships, and feed patterns that create more chaos and limitation. To master your reality, you must master every facet of your speech. You must observe, edit, and refine the language you use so that it consistently reinforces growth, strength, and clarity. Repetition is the engine behind this principle. Every day you speak your limitations, you reinforce them. Every day you speak your potential and your intentions, you reinforce that. Over time, these repetitions crystallize into identity, and identity becomes destiny. Speaking your reality into existence is not about vague positivity or wishful thinking. It is about deliberate, conscious, and relentless control over the language you use. It is about creating an internal ecosystem of thought and speech that organizes behavior, focus, and decisions toward the results you demand. Most people fail to grasp that their outer circumstances are the echo of their inner dialogue. They blame luck, environment, or timing, while continuing to speak fear, doubt, and excuse. But the truth is, reality bends to the instructions given verbally, consciously, or unconsciously. You do not have to wait for the world to change to experience success. The change begins in the words you issue, the statements you repeat, and the commands you give your mind. Speak clearly, speak deliberately, and speak daily, because each word is a seed. Each seed grows into a pattern. Each pattern crystallizes into belief, and each belief manifests as the tangible reality you live. If you want a life of power, success, and momentum, start with your words. Speak as though you are already who you intend to become. Speak as though obstacles, are temporary, as though mastery is inevitable, as though effort always produces results. Eliminate speech that reinforces weakness, complaint, or limitation. Your life is listening constantly, and it obeys exactly what you tell it. Speak your reality into existence every day, because the world will not wait, and neither will your potential. Discipline of speech is discipline of thought, because the words you allow to leave your mouth are a direct reflection of the patterns running in your mind, and without control over those words, the mind itself remains chaotic, scattered, and untrained. Most people underestimate this principle because they think that thoughts are private, that talking is merely a reflection, and that as long as they try or intend to think clearly, life will somehow align. That is false. Every word you speak outwardly reinforces a mental blueprint inwardly. Words are not just communication. They are the instruments by which the mind organizes, prioritizes, and directs energy toward action. Careless speech is the breeding ground of careless thinking, and careless thinking is the breeding ground of mediocre results. When your speech is undisciplined, the mind becomes undisciplined. Random, emotional, or reactive language trains the brain to respond in patterns that are inconsistent, unfocused, and reactive. Complaints, excuses, blame, and fear are not harmless. They are instructions to the subconscious to accept limitation, avoid responsibility, and expect failure. Every sentence spoken without deliberate control strengthens pathways of weakness, doubt, and hesitation. The more you allow your tongue to wander without purpose, the more your thoughts scatter, your focus diffuses, and your life becomes a reflection of internal disorder. The mind obeys what it hears, and if it hears chaos, it produces chaos. Strong, disciplined individuals understand that speech is not secondary to thought. It is primary. Words are the vessel in which ideas, intentions, and beliefs are transmitted into the subconscious mind, and repeated transmission builds identity. Speaking with precision, clarity, and intentionality reinforces thought patterns that are powerful, focused, and aligned with purpose. Every declarative statement is a signal, every command is a reinforcement, and every carefully chosen phrase trains the mind to operate at a higher level. You cannot think with discipline if your words are sloppy, impulsive, or weak, because the tongue communicates the mind's priorities more accurately than conscious reflection ever can. Think about the difference between people who complain habitually and people who speak in terms of responsibility and solution. The complainer may have access to the same intelligence, resources, and opportunities, but the language they use constantly reinforces helplessness, delay, and limitation. Their mind has no map for decisive action because their speech has built no framework for it. In contrast, a person who speaks deliberately, issuing commands and affirmations aligned with a definite aim, has trained their mind to operate like a precision instrument. Every word acts as a drill, carving patterns of focus, clarity, and decisive behavior into the subconscious. Speech is the manual, thought is the engine, and the results of life are the outcome. Discipline of speech also requires vigilance over the subtle ways we allow words to shape thought. Casual phrases like, "I'm tired, I'll try," or "I don't know," are not neutral. They embed uncertainty, weakness, and hesitation into the mind. They create mental friction and signal to the subconscious that effort is negotiable and results are optional. Discipline of speech means monitoring these phrases, catching them and replacing them with declarative commands and precise, confident statements. "I will complete this task. I will find a solution. I refuse to quit." These words program the mind to align action with intention, to focus energy on solutions, and to navigate obstacles with clarity. The discipline of the tongue directly conditions the discipline of thought. The mind obeys what it hears repeatedly. If the mouth constantly emits complaints, fear, or doubt, the mind will organize thoughts to mirror those weaknesses. Conversely, if the mouth consistently emits intention, confidence, and clarity, the mind begins to operate on higher principles of focus and control. Discipline of speech is therefore not a superficial habit. It is the foundation of all mental mastery. The words you allow to leave your mouth determine the architecture of your internal world. If your internal world is chaotic, your external results will reflect it. If your internal world is precise, focused, and aligned, your results will follow suit. This is why mastery of speech is the starting point for all achievement. You cannot delegate control of your mind to thoughts alone, because thoughts are often fleeting, reactive, and unmonitored. Words, however, are tangible, repeatable, and conscious. They allow deliberate construction of thought patterns and offer a feedback loop that shapes mental discipline over time. Speaking with intentionality is equivalent to exercising your mind. Each command, affirmation, or declarative statement strengthens neural pathways of focus, clarity, and action. Every uncontrolled word weakens those pathways, creating vulnerability to distraction, procrastination, and failure. Discipline of speech is also discipline of identity. The words you choose to describe yourself, your potential, and your circumstances create a mental self-image that guides behavior automatically. The careless speaker may say, "I'm not good at this," or "this will never work," embedding limitation into the mind. The disciplined speaker says, "I will master this," or "I will overcome this obstacle," embedding capability, responsibility, and determination. Over time, the mind internalizes these patterns and behavior follows naturally. Speech is therefore both the architect and the builder of identity, thought, and action. Mastering speech requires constant awareness, deliberate repetition, and relentless correction of careless language. It is uncomfortable at first because the mind resists precision, preferring familiar patterns of complaint, doubt, and distraction. But through consistent practice, words become instruments of mental control, shaping thought, directing energy, and reinforcing behavior that produces success. Discipline of speech is the training ground where the mind learns to obey, focus, and execute. Without it, no amount of talent, education, or opportunity can compensate for a mind that has been conditioned by random, careless language. If you want a life of control, achievement, and momentum, begin by mastering your words. Speak with precision, speak with authority, and speak with intention. Monitor every phrase, sentence, and thought expressed verbally. Replace weakness with strength, hesitation with clarity, and randomness with deliberate action. Discipline your speech, and you will discipline your thought. Discipline your thought, and your life will beg to operate according to your design rather than by accident. Words are the bridge between thought and reality, and mastery of them is mastery of everything. Successful people talk with intention, not emotion, because words are the instruments of action, and action is the foundation of results. Most people mistake talking for thinking and emotion for insight, but uncontrolled emotional speech is the silent architect of failure, distraction, and mediocrity. Every word spoken in frustration, fear, or anxiety trains the mind to default to chaos, while every word spoken with deliberate intent programs the mind for precision, focus, and achievement. Intention is a command, emotion is a reaction. Success requires command, not reaction. The world is filled with talented people who never realize their potential, not because they lack skill, but because they speak impulsively, allowing mood, pressure, and circumstance to dictate their words. When the tongue speaks out of anger, doubt, or panic, the subconscious mind records these instructions as reality. "I'm overwhelmed. This is too hard. I can't handle this." These phrases are not harmless. They are blueprints for hesitation and failure. Emotionally charged speech convinces the mind that obstacles are permanent, that solutions are optional, and